Evolution is the development of life on Earth, beginning billions of years ago and continuing to this day. It is the answer to the question of how creatures such as a dachshund and a Great Dane, who have vastly different appearances, can be descended from the same ancestor. Evolution works through two key mechanisms: uniqueness and selection. Uniqueness is the characteristic of living creatures and is a result of the excess production of offspring and heredity. Heredity is the passing down of DNA from one generation to the next, and is possible through the processes of recombination, where the genes of two creatures are mixed, and mutation, which is random changes in the DNA. Selection is the process by which certain traits are favored over others and passed down to the next generation. This is known as natural selection and is the most important mechanism driving the development of life on Earth. Randomness plays a big role in the mechanisms of evolution. Random recombination and mutations result in individuals with random mixes of traits and characteristics, which in turn mix these randomly, and pass them on. However, environmental influences such as predators, parasites, toxins, habitat, or climate change will influence which individuals survive and which do not, as they are subjected to a process of natural selection. Those with a suitable mix of traits and characteristics will survive, and those with an unsuitable mix will be selected from the environment. This is why creatures try to produce offspring that are as diverse as possible, as it increases the likelihood that at least one of their offspring will pass the natural selection process. Darwin's finches of the Galapagos Islands are a perfect example of this. A small group of finches were blown onto the islands by a storm, and, over the course of many generations, their beaks became more and more specialized to exploit different niches, until eventually, different species emerged. Evolution tells us why living creatures are so perfectly adapted to their environments and why each of us is a unique product of 3.5 billion years of evolution. Our ancestors had to fight and adapt to survive, and this meant that many species became extinct, with only a few managing to survive. We are part of this success story and are incredibly special, just like all the other creatures that exist today. We are irreproducible and unique in the universe, and this is a result of the mechanisms of evolution, randomness, heredity, recombination, mutation, and selection. But they can also be beneficial, and this is what nature wants. When a mutation provides a creature with an advantage, it is more likely to survive and reproduce. The result is that this mutation is passed on to the next generation. Over time, more and more mutations accumulate, leading to more and more differences between the members of a species. These two factors, the excess production of offspring and heredity, are the key ones in creating the uniqueness of creatures. This uniqueness is essential for evolution, as it is only through these differences that selection can take place. Evolution is an ongoing process that has been happening for billions of years, where life on Earth has developed from primitive protozoa to the millions of different species we see today. Evolution is the answer to the question of how it is possible for animals to have descendants that look so very different to their ancestors. To understand this, it is important to understand the concept of a species, which is a community of animals that are capable of producing offspring with one another. The uniqueness of living creatures is due to two main factors: the excess production of offspring and heredity. Heredity is the passing on of DNA to offspring, which is done through recombination and mutation. Recombination is a random mixing of the DNA of two creatures, while mutation is a random change in the DNA. These mutations can be both negative and beneficial, and when beneficial it is passed on to the next generation. This creates differences between members of a species, and it is these differences that allow for selection to take place, which is an important part of evolution. Random mutation and recombination are key components when it comes to the heredity process, as they are what allow living creatures to pass on their specific traits and characteristics to their offspring. This process of passing on traits is based on chance, and it is responsible for individuals having a unique mix of traits and characteristics. To further explain this process, a good example is that of the Darwin finches, who were blown onto the Galapagos Islands many years ago. These finches found themselves in a new environment that provided a great abundance of food, but due to the number of birds, food soon became scarce, meaning that the finches had to compete with one another. It was then that selection came into play. The slight differences between the birds in terms of their beaks meant that some were better able to exploit their environment for certain food sources. As a result, the finches began to mate primarily with other finches of the same niche, and over many generations, these traits became more pronounced. This is how new species are created. The individual differences of the original finches, the randomness of mutations and recombination, and the selection factors of the environment all came together to create 14 different species of finch on the Galapagos Islands today. Recombination and mutation in heredity is a crucial part of evolution and is responsible for the diversity of life that we see around us. It is the process by which genetic material is combined to produce new and different variations of genetic traits. This process is incredibly important as it allows species to adapt to changing environments, making them better suited for survival. Variations in genetic traits caused by recombination and mutation can be passed down from one generation to the next, eventually leading to the development of new species. Mutation and recombination also affects us personally. Every individual alive today is the result of millions of years of evolution. Our ancestors faced countless obstacles and overcame them in order to survive. Our success is even more remarkable when we consider the fact that 99% of all species that ever lived are now extinct. But we are still here, thanks to the process of mutation and recombination, which has allowed us to adapt and survive. Every person is unique in the universe, thanks to the 3.5 billion years of evolution that has been passed down to us. We are all irreproducible, and that is something incredibly special to be proud of.